Today we're talking about different kinds of employers and different ways of working as a designer. Basic stuff, you probably know a lot of it, but I'm just going to run through it again in case there's stuff you haven't heard about yet. To start, ad agencies. Ad agencies create advertising campaigns, promotions, brand awareness, marketing campaigns, as well as other more exotic projects. If this is the kind of thing you love, make sure you have examples of it in your portfolio. In the studio, you can be a creative, working in partnership with other creatives or working in a team. You can be the person or a team that comes up with the concept for the campaign. You can be the writer, or you can be the person that executes the concept, designing the ads. You can be a UI UX person, creating smooth interfaces for apps and websites. Sometimes you can be all of those things at the same time. AI is making that a lot easier, not necessarily better. Those roles are all evolving very quickly with AI. Oftentimes you'll be doing all of them because the AI is helping you out. Executing a concept for a campaign means assessing what would be the most effective channels for the campaign. There may be many channels, for instance, posters, magazines, billboards, but also umbrellas, beer cans, taxis, buses, trains, subway platforms, subway cars, stair steps like they have in Times Square. They have the ads on the steps themselves. Company uniforms, trucks, guerrilla advertising, skywriting. One graduate mocked up a sculpture of the company logo to be shown outside of a corporate headquarters. And all of that is before you get to the big kahuna, the many digital environments like social media, banners, email campaigns, websites, mini sites, internet animations, GIFs, animated posters, and of course apps. Apps can be built that are specific to a campaign or a product or a more general tool for the company. There are television and internet ads involving video, animation, and music to be shown on places like YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, network television, cable television, movie theaters, animated posters, sometimes a small community like a hotel or an airline or a hospital or a doctor's office will have content prepared just for the customers that are temporarily in that environment. You may have had the experience of waiting for a plane and there's a screen there showing airline specific content, or in a dentist or doctor's office and the screen showing lots of toothy people advertising toothpaste or whatever. You know the kind of thing I'm talking about. The skills needed for all these different channels might be within the ad agency, or they might farm out some of the work to other specialized design studios. More on that in a minute. You can be a presentation designer. That's someone who specializes in presenting a campaign concept to a client. So you don't work on the campaign, you just present it. There are lots of opportunities for creative work in an advertising agency. Sometimes design graduates will decide they want to work for a particular agency and they target that agency. They pester their way into the company or start as a receptionist or in the mailroom, if that even exists anymore. But basically, you start at the bottom and you work your way into the creative department. Or you get an internship and impress them so much that they hire you. You can make a lot of money in advertising. It can be very competitive, very demanding, and you can work very long hours. It can also be a fulfilling creative career. Next, design studios. These can focus in different directions. A graphic design studio can focus on branding, creating a brand, designing logos, corporate identity, look of a company, fonts, colors, textures, taglines, collateral. Collateral means all the different materials that need to show the look of a brand, like stationery, the apps, websites, social media, games, brochures, posters, reports, invites, in some cases branded carpeting or wallpaper. I forget who it was, Nike or someone like that. They put the logo on the bottom of a pair of sneakers so that when the wearer's footprints imprinted the logo in the snow or mud, so that when you walked, you were followed by a bunch of Nike logos. It's kind of cool. There are lots of ways to incorporate the look and feel of the brand that the studio creates. Another kind of design agency could focus on signage or wayfinding. For instance, for a zoo or a subway system, or corporate compound, or a university or hospital or a museum. Even a public park like Central Park needs signage. God help me, it's easy to get lost there. Department stores like Macy's need sensible signage. You can waste a lot of time looking for a particular department if the signage is terrible. Good signage can be crucial in an emergency situation. If there is a fire or a shooter attack or a sudden hurricane, good signage can easily show people the right way to get out of a dangerous situation and literally save lives. One agency we visited in Paris specialized in huge signage projects. So they did all the subway system that was in the city of Lyon in Paris. So all the signs that were in the subway stations, the names of the stations, all the directions going places. Signage in subways is really important. It's easy to get lost in the spaghetti junction of all those different subway lines and tunnels. New York subway, not the best. Paris subway, really good. Another kind of agency could focus on packaging. A lot of print design is drifting over onto the internet, obviously, but packaging and labeling is always going to have to be here. Then there are specialist studios like animation studios. These can work on animation like cartoons or movies, TV shows, advertising. Other studios specialize in broadcast design, which can be the animated typography for credits or on television shows and movies. Information graphics of the kind you see on news shows or late night talk shows. Graphics that show scores and stats for baseball, soccer, football, basketball, ping pong, Olympic competitions. Every kind of sport needs screen typography. These skills often done in-house as well as though, for instance, these skills are often done in-house. So, for instance, ABC, CBS, and NBC have their own graphics departments. Agencies and freelancers would be used for overflow work. And a studio that specializes in After Effects or Maya or shooting and editing videos will be subcontracted by an ad agency to work on an aspect of a campaign they are developing. Agencies will work together when necessary. Not everyone does everything. AI will eventually do quite a lot of it, but you still have to be there to make sure it's not doing something stupid. Some television and movies and advertisements are either animated or have animated parts to them. The Simpsons, which I'm assuming you've seen or heard of, started on a live-action comedy sketch show back in the 80s, 40 years ago, as a short animated featurette. Voice acting these days is done in Hollywood, as well as the storylines and character designs, but all the animation is actually done in Korea. Then there are studios who do the big stuff, purely animated TV and movies by people like Pixar and Disney and DreamWorks. And then there's like a ton of shows on TV and cable that are just animated stuff for kids, also stuff for adults. But Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks, they're the big heavy hitters, and they employ lots of animators. But there are many other smaller studios who do that smaller stuff. It's a competitive field, and you work very long hours. Again, you can make a good living, but it does require specialist software knowledge. Lots of companies also incorporate little animations and videos into their projects. Some of this is done in After Effects, but also Photoshop or Animate or iMovie or QuickTime, the basic stuff, and a number of other less complicated programs. And they're not necessarily done by animation experts, but by designers who either use simpler programs or just learn new software on the job. A little bit of After Effects can go a long way. These are relatively simple technical jobs that still need creative designers. The Pixar-type studios require a much higher level of technical knowledge, and you generally need more training beyond a bachelor's degree, either a master's or advanced certificate specializing in the relevant software. So once again, I'm suggesting that you all include at least one small animation project in your portfolio, ideally 3. It can be an animated GIF, some kinetic type, an animated logo, something cool that shows you know a little bit about animation. It can be some type over video footage. This could be a one-off project, but even would be better an expansion of one of your existing projects. So if you have a branding project, animate the logo. If you have an ad campaign, animate a banner ad. If you have a poster, animate it. But existing ones, so you're not starting from scratch. If you're interested in copywriting, write an ad or get an AI to write it and then fix it and then animate the type. So you're showing off those 2 skills at the same time. Your portfolio is all about showing off your skills and creative ideas. There are also studios that focus on web design. I know some of you this semester are interested in web design and UI UX. But even if you don't want to be a stone cold web designer, a little bit of web design knowledge is a great help in the studio. Often all you need to do is update an image or edit some copy on our website, and that little knowledge is a big plus. Then there's publishing. In book publishing, you would work in an in-house studio designing book covers and interiors. There's also digital ebooks and bookmarks and marketing for books and promotional collateral, email campaigns, banner ads, social media campaigns, as well as book catalogs, display posters, displays for bookstores. Again, a lot of this is being taken up by AI, but you still need somebody making sure that they're not, going off in weird directions. And all the usual corporate communications, including the branding like newsletters, annual reports, and invites. For magazine publishers, though the print magazine section has dwindled, there are still designers needing to design magazine pages. There's also magazine websites and apps that contain print material. There's a lot of opportunities to work as designers and photographers in that world. The more you can show that you know all about the different channels and formats, the better. So if you love magazines, familiarize yourself with all these kinds of channels. I just saw a video of the making of the Vogue cover. So basically they interviewed the photographer, they interviewed the celebrity who was Emma Stone, and they showed the behind the scenes, and they show her in the studio posing and coming up with the ideas for the shots. And I suspect that was just an in-house Vogue filmmaker creating content out of something that was going to be for the cover, but then you can spin it off into more content about the behind the scenes and a celebrity interview. And you take this one thing and you just make loads of content out of it. So yes, magazines, video. Then there are just plain old companies that are not part of the creative industry. Many companies have their own in-house communication and design departments, somewhere like Time Warner or a law firm or an insurance company or a university like CityTech. They all have their own communications and marketing departments. For instance, some of you have already worked in the faculty commons at CityTech. If you got a job working for one of those companies, you wouldn't be in the creative industry per se, but you would be in the creative department within a different industry. If you work in the design department of a company, you work on that company's communications materials, like their website, their apps, their departmental reports, interdepartmental communications, annual reports, presentations, newsletters, brochures, business cards, all that stuff. It can get repetitive because you tend to stay with the brand and the look of that one company. But you really get to know that company, and there is a chance to get promoted and develop a long-term relationship with that company. You could work your way into management and start making serious money. It's probably a bit more secure, and they tend to have decent benefits. Health insurance, vacations, days off, bonuses, pensions, that kind of good stuff. Keep in mind, nothing is guaranteed in this world, but these kinds of jobs tend to be more secure. Then there are civil service designers, When you work for the city or the state, the police department, the fire department, the general services department, the education department, all these guys have their own design departments. In fact, this semester, we have 2 people who have worked for local government. Way back when I was young, I worked in the City Publishing Center of the Department for General Services for the City of New York. Also at WNYC radio station, which used to be owned by the city. These were civil service jobs where you could take a test and eventually secure a job that is very difficult to get fired from. These jobs tend to not pay as much as the private sector, but they're much more secure and they have much better benefits. And you don't have to work crazy hard as you would in, for instance, advertising. Designers often go for these jobs for the long-term security. They tend to have longer vacations, and they tend to be union jobs. Unions are a good thing, by the way. Then there are startups. This is the age of startups. Now, a couple of years ago, they were all over the place. They still exist. They're still happening. These are when you work for a bunch of people who have a crazy internet concept and don't necessarily know what they're doing, but they're figuring it out on the fly. Chances are, if you're in this situation, you're the only designer there. This can be good because you have the opportunity to do a lot of interesting work. This can be bad because you might not have a talented art director that you can learn from. You may earn lousy money, you may earn no money. You may be offered share options instead. A share option means you are offered a small slice of the ownership of the startup. This is instead of getting paid. This can be good and this can be bad. Often a startup will die a death and you never get paid. But one former City Tech student worked for a startup and turned down the offer of share options in lieu of payment. She was paid a not that great salary, but she regretted it when they sold the company for big money. It's a crazy world. Just keep in mind that most startups fail, but some startups end up being Instagram. Your call. Then there's freelancing. I'm going to do another video about freelancing later in the semester because it's a big topic. Suffice to say, you are responsible for finding work, doing the work, chasing payments, learning new software, unpaid vacations, no sick pay, but you have a kind of freedom that a regular job does not give you. Most of my working life, I've been a freelance, and I vastly prefer it. I'll be going over all of this stuff in that video, which will be in a couple of weeks. So when you're looking for work, keep these different kinds of jobs in your mind and try to recognize the pluses and minuses before they become a problem for you. Some things to keep in mind about this class. This class is intense, and you need to keep the productivity up. If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, email me or send me a new project to work on. Remember, you need to update your work substantially every week. That means reviewing the changes we have discussed in our meetings, but also expanding your projects into other channels. If you run out of things to work on, upload new projects and I can critique them before we meet again. Work on your resume and logo and group assignments is work that is in addition to your project work, not instead of your project work. Resumes end up taking way longer than you think, and you can't let the project work fall by the wayside while you're working on your resume and cover letter. By the way, if you get your work finished in this class early in the semester, you can spend the end of the semester finishing up your other classes. So front load the heavy work. You'll have more time later to finish your senior project or your internship or whatever, and your future self will thank you. Okay, so I'll see you on Sunday and Monday.